Well, I was sitting about 14 or 15 rows back from the stage. It's a fairly large amphitheater. Here we call it the Amp. It seats a few thousand people, and it's a covered amphitheater. And what I was just settling into my seat around 10:45 a.m. a few minutes beforehand. We knew that this was going to be a very popular event. He's a very, well-known speaker, author, novelist, and proponent of human rights. And um, the one of the hosts for the event, one of the staff members of the Chautauqua Institution, was describing the program. And shortly after he started talking, a man rushed onto the stage and repeatedly and viciously stabbed Salman Rushdie. And there were just gasps of shock from the audience. We were all sitting down. Many of us stood up. A few courageous and compassionate people went up to the stage. And it was just a really horrible act of intolerance and violence to witness.
Describing those scenes, of course, it is hard to comprehend what would have been unfolding in that situation. How are you feeling about being there and witnessing such an attack, given obviously as well the expectation of seeing someone like Salman Rushdie, who is noted for his ability to speak on matters which have drawn, so much attention and of course, those threats that have been made to his life over the years. How was it to be there and to be witnessing this event taking place?
Well, it's really difficult for those of us who've been members of the Chautauqua community for some years because part of the mission of the Chautauqua movement when it started in the late 1800s in the United States was partly to embrace controversy as part of diversity. And so people come here with open minds and open hearts, and they try to listen and learn. And part of doing that is sometimes, arguing with each other. And so to see that community pierced, by someone who, just had this level of intolerance and violence and rage within himself is it does harm to Salman Rushdie, and we're all very hoping for a speedy recovery for him. But it also really just it's been devastating to the community. I just came back from a vigil for him a few hours ago.
As you mentioned there, Professor Levan, this was an event centred on recognising, the risk, I suppose, for people who can speak out on issues when it comes to, political authorities that don't welcome freedom of speech. You mentioned there that people in the crowd, some were courageous enough to put themselves in danger when this situation eventuated. In your view, was there enough protection provided for this particular event?
Well, the New York State Police are on the scene. The theater's been roped off, and I trust the Chautauqua Institution to engage in a thorough investigation. I'm reading from news reports, like everyone else, that some of the federal authorities are involved, as they should be, with an incident like this. But the Chautauqua community has always been so trusting, and that's been an important part of tolerance and learning and exploring controversial issues. And so I think there'll be some hard conversations about how to maintain that sense of openness, and to maybe have a little more security. In the case of Salman Rushdie today, given what we know about him and that the fatwa, has been ongoing on him for so many years, perhaps, they could have anticipated a little bit more, but I trust the Chautauqua community to really move forward and to have a thorough investigation.
Professor Levan, given Salman Rushdie's history, death threats stalked him for decades. What do you make of his choice to continue to speak out, to come out of hiding? He was in hiding for almost a decade, to continue to be a presence and to continue to make statements around, freedom of speech and expression and what have you.
Miriam, that's a really important question. And I've never met Salman Rushdie. I've only known him through some of his words, and of course, have followed his career and some of the controversy around his career. And I think he has made some wise and generous decisions in using his status and his prominence to speak out for those who may not have the ability to defend themselves. That I think he really stands for the principles of free expression and for free creativity. And we need fiction and we need imagination, and we learn from each other when we're able to follow the great minds of creators like him. And so, I really have tremendous respect for what he's done for human rights and for helping other writers write and think freely.
Professor Carl Levan, we thank you so much for making time to speak to us, given, the stress and the strain, the difficulty of the circumstances in which you speak to us today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Miriam.